Hi there, folks. So you might have noticed there was a couple of articles floating around in the news about the British Medical Association saying that the staff shouldn't refer to expecting or expectant mothers. They should use the term pregnant people. This is part of a PC push coming from a guide in the British Medical Association called The Guide to Inclusive Language in the Workplace. I'll leave the link in the description below. It's a PDF form. I've read through this, and it is so riddled with progressive narrative and social justice. It's ridiculous, and I wanted to draw attention to this because you're paying taxes for this, basically. So it starts off, gives a wee bit of introduction into discrimination, what it is, and that sort of thing. Comes down about second or third page, and there's a paragraph called "What is discriminatory language?" and it's divided into 5 bullet points. The first one basically says reinforcement of stereotypes. So if you're reinforcing stereotypes, that's a form of discrimination. That's a fair point. Second one says reinforce derogatory labels. And again, I can understand, don't demean people, that makes sense. Third one says exclude certain groups of people through assumptions. Now that's okay at face value, but it gives an example here saying, example, assuming the male or white population is the norm. And this is where we start to see the progressive narrative kick into this. This is where we start to see social justice absolutely infest this manifest. The fourth point is patronize or trivialize certain people or groups or their experiences. And again, that at face value, that's okay. And you'll notice that these other ones, there's no examples for these ones. They just label the point. And the fifth point is cause discomfort or offence. I find this one a wee bit worrying because discomfort or offence can be so subjective sometimes. What one person finds offensive, another person doesn't. And what exactly does that mean? There's no specifics. These generalized terms basically act as thought policing, because you're going to be so afraid of causing any discomfort or offence, you won't be able to say anything really. But I'll go into a bit more detail about each section, each marginalized group, as it were, that they've outlined in this manifest. So the first discrimination group is age, basically. It says, a bunch of pedantic things like don't use the terms older or younger because these are relative and they need to be used in specific circumstances, this, that, and the other. And there's, at the last section of it has a quick reference guide, and it tells you like a list of things that you would say and a list of things that you're supposed to say instead. Thought policing, basically. And for example, some of these, it says don't use the term elderly, aged, old people, senior citizen, pensioner, things like that there. I mean, is senior citizen that offensive? Is old person that offensive? Elderly? I've never really heard anyone getting offended at these terms before. And it'll say things like use older person, older citizen, older people. I was like, what's the difference there? Why is that such a big deal? It's literally this just seems to be thought policing. Don't ask, like, say for example, if you're interviewing a candidate for a job or something, don't ask how many years experience this person has. I was like, well, isn't that relative to a job? Wouldn't you want to know how many years experience a person has? A more experienced person is going to be better at the job. Should that not be a relevant thing? It also says, don't ask how a candidate feels about managing older or younger people. And again, I'm like, managing older people and managing younger people are two different things. I sort of manage younger and older people in my work, and they're two completely different groups. And, I know people who can get along better with the older people, and you would rather they work with those people to, get their job done better. And then there's people who get along better with younger people. And if you set the right people with the right, employees, the right staff, everything works so much better. And these groups, they are different. They are very, very different. And I think that's a relevant and important point when asking the candidate. But apparently, no, according to this manifesto, you're not allowed to do that. So it goes on to talk about the disabled then. The first paragraph at the sort of start of the article says, don't patronize or draw unnecessary attention to the disabled or make it seem like they're disadvantaged or they're suffering or this is some sort of victimhood that they're under. I can get that. I can understand that. Not trying to bring someone down for their condition. That makes a degree of sense. Where it gets a wee bit silly once again is where it starts to go into the examples. And again, some of these, there's no big difference. It just seems like it's thought policing. It just seems like these pedantic differences are just there, so it's the case of we're telling you how you should speak. For example, it says, instead of using the term autistic child, say child with autism. To me, that's the exact same thing. That's just a different way of saying the exact same thing. I don't see how autistic child is any better or worse than child with autism. It'll say, for example, don't use the term disabled parking space, use accessible parking space. To me, that would get a little bit confusing, because I'm just saying that for the average citizen, if you go up to any facility, a hospital, a shopping centre, or anywhere, and you see accessible parking spaces, signs for accessible parking spaces, no one's going to assume that that's for disabled people. And so fairly able people will just go and park in those, going, what is an accessible parking space? You know, so to me, that's where disabled parking space needs to be made specific, so that people who aren't disabled don't try to park in these, accessible parking spaces. Again, that just seems pedantic, and in that case, I actually think it kind of gets in the road, to be honest. So then it moves on to gender, and this is where feminism starts to kick in, and this is the section where I really notice it literally just stops being about medicine in any conceivable sense. It literally starts off this paragraph with the phrase, the English language appears to have evolved an assumption that the world is male. What on earth is that? Why was that said? There is no reason for that I can really think of other than misandry. It gives a couple of examples that peeves people off. Man in the street, as if that's a common term. Who uses that as a common term? The only time I've ever used man in the street is if I have saw a man in the street. Man in the phones is another one, and tax man, because, like, seriously, what is so offensive about that? What is really grinding people's gears? It carries on frustratingly to talk about using gender neutral terms such as partner instead of saying wife or husband, or using the term parent instead of mother or father, or using the word child instead of son or daughter. And again, these are just pedantic points that don't need to be there at all. Then it talks, and again, this is another one that has nothing to do with medicine at all. I can't see why this is a necessary point in this whole thing. But it says about using the term, I assume this is Ms. MS, that I think that's an American thing. I don't really hear that being used in Britain here that often. Using the term Ms. instead of Miss. And again, I don't really know anyone who gets that offended at that. Maybe a few feminists, because, they get offended at everything. But or they say use the gender neutral term MX. Is that mix or something? I don't know what that is or why that term's there, but apparently they're telling you to use that instead. And if you go down to the quick reference guide of do's and don'ts, basically, it carries on with these pedantic points. For example, it says if you're creating a form, don't create some sort of hierarchical structure with males at the top and women at the bottom or something. Things like don't have it ordered professor, doctor, Mr., Mrs., Miss, Ms., mix, all this here. Mix it up because reasons, right? And it goes on to say, there's other really pedantic points. Instead of saying men and women, say women and men, just to mix it up. What has that got to do with medicine? Not one thing. That is just pure social justice injected into that for no apparent reason. And again, it says, don't say something like the lecturer will display his timetable on his office door, because that's going to offend the lecturer or people who read about this male lecturer. Instead, it says lecturers will display their timetables on their office doors. Again, just more pedantic points that don't need to be there. And again, don't use the terms man or mankind or man-hours, manpower. Say humanity, humans, human beings, people, society, work hours, or staff time, or just stuff like just really pedantic points. Things that don't need to be there at all. This is just thought policing. That's the only way I can describe this. Pure and utter thought policing. Then it talks about transgendered people. Don't be using the terms biological, genetically, or born a male or female. Instead, use the term assigned or designated. This I have a severe problem with, because number one, you are biologically either a male or female. That's undeniable. I don't care. That's undeniable. Again, genetically, you're genetically a male or genetically a female. That is true. No amount of operations, no amount of hormone treatments can change your genes. Tough luck, right? And the term born male or female. Once again, you are born a male or a female. It doesn't matter if you decide later in life that you want to be the other sex. You're still born that way, right? Those are just truths. At this point, this is doublethink. This is doublethink at this point. And instead it tells you to use the term assigned or designated. Who assigns or designates your gender, your sex? No one. I get this. This is ridiculous. You're not assigned or designated. You are or you aren't. Tough luck. I don't care about your feels there. The truth is, you are biologically, genetically, and born one sex. You then change if you want to. If you so want to, you change afterwards. Then it becomes you're assigned or designated. But for the normal person, you're biologically, genetically, or born one sex. And then it says not to use the term sex change, pre-op, or post-op. Instead, you should say transition, or just don't refer to the fact that this part's really hilarious. Don't refer to the part of a sex change operation, because it suggests that one must have a surgery in order to transition. Well, yes, one must have a surgery in order to transition at the very least. And even then, it's still debatable, really. Many people still debate it. So finally it talks about marriage, race, pregnancy, and religion, and sexual orientation, just the basics. These are pretty pedantic points, and I'm just going to be repeating myself if I carry them on. I said the pregnancy one, which is the one that's obviously caught everyone's attention in the news, which is don't use the term expectant mother, say pregnant people, because obviously woman Hayden Cross a couple of weeks ago, who was touted as Britain's first pregnant dad. No, you're a pregnant mother. Sorry, you're a pregnant mother. End of. Religion I find quite funny. It says don't use the term Christian name. Instead, say first name, in case you offend Jews or Muslims. That's absolute lunacy. I mean, what are we going to do next? Are we going to change the term BC and AD? Well, actually, there are some people doing that. Actually, there's a video from a guy on YouTube called Lindy Beige, and he's actually done a video on this, and I'll just link it in the description below, because he explains it far better than I do. But there actually are some people who are offended at the term BC and AD, and instead of me talking about it, I'm just going to link it. And the exact same argument takes place in this circumstance with the term Christian name as it does with the terms before Christ and after death. It's the exact same argument. I'll just link the video in the description below here. And it also says under religion and belief here, it says surname and last name as terms that you shouldn't be using. But I find that really strange. What is offensive about surname or last name? Everyone has a last name. That's not an offensive term in any way, shape, or form. That's just thought policing. Again, that is just blatant thought policing. So I just thought I would draw this all to your attention because, you know, you're paying taxes towards this. These are your doctors, your nurses, the medical staff that run your hospitals and GPs. This is what they're being forced to abide by. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Perhaps I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm not angry enough at this. Is this PC culture gone mad? Leave me a comment down below and just get your thoughts on it. Thanks very much for watching the video.